What would you do to have the perfect body? Would you go on a diet? Would you exercise? Go to the gym? Jog? I really don't understand people who jog. I seriously don't. If you want to do something like that, get a push bike. You get there quicker and you get exactly the same amount of exercise in it. Would you pay somebody to suck the fat out of you or anything like that? What would you do to feel perfect in your own body? Would you have tattoos, piercings? Would you have implants, things cut in half? Or would you even go to the extreme and have amputations? Bits of you taken off that you feel aren't what you want to be. The reason why I asked this question is because I've seen a film recently that has reinstalled faith in me with modern horror films. Ask anybody who knows me and they'll say that I love horror films. I absolutely love horror films. I think horror films speak to our most basic instincts, which is fear. Fear is one of the first and one of the oldest instincts that man has ever had. Much more older than love, older than hate. It tells you when something's not right. It gives you that whole fight or flight instinct as well. You know, it keeps you. Fear is what keeps you alive. If you're scared of something, then chances are you're going to be, willing. You're willing to do anything to get yourself out of a situation because of fear. So horror films feed or give that basic instinct that we have, but they give it to you in a controlled way, in a safe way, for want of a safer word, even safer than roller coasters. A hell of a lot safer than roller coasters. So yeah, I mean, I absolutely love horror films, from all the old horror films like Nosferatu, The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, Gollum, through to the 30s and 40s with the Universal monster films with Dracula and Bela Lugosi and Lon Chaney Jr. and Wolfman and Frankenstein and all that, through to the 50s and 60s with the Hammer horror films that were with Peter Cushing in it and all those other great British actors and those great films, through to the 70s with all the Italian horror films and the 80s, the early 80s with England, what was known as the video nasties, and up to modern times. I love horror films. I think they're absolutely brilliant. But I feel that modern horror films have lost their way a bit. It doesn't seem to be so much about the fear and the scaring people. It's more to do with how many people you can make throw up in the cinema or at home by doing the most grotesque or goriest thing you can think of. The most depraved thing you can think of. Stick it on your movie and make people throw up. That's not horror film. That's just vomit-inducing, quite frankly. Even in the films from the slasher films from the 80s, like Friday the 13th and Halloween films, yes, people got cut up and stabbed and shot and garroted and gutted and that, but the gore was still quite subdued in a way, and there was still relatively a story there, and you had the fear of the killer in it rather than the fear of trying not to be sick in front of people. So yeah, I think that modern horror films have quite frankly lost their way. They're not horror films really as such, but I have been looking forward to seeing this movie since I read the plot synopsis on the internet quite a few months ago, and I have to say it has reinvigorated my love of the horror genre in movies. It's by the Soska sisters. They are two amazingly talented young ladies from Canada, and it's American Mary. Let's get the glare off there. There you go. Now, to put it a bit into a perspective, I imagine most people on YouTube who do reviews, I can't really afford. Sorry, I can't. I don't have the luxury of having things sent to me from companies, and from comic companies and movie companies or whatever. So anything that I review, as I said, like I imagine most people on YouTube who do review videos, I have to pay for things myself. And that's one of the reasons why I don't do a lot of movie reviews on my channel. I would love to do loads of movie reviews, but the majority of movies that I get are quite old, and or in the cinematic way, quite old. Most of the DVDs I get of movies I get are from 2 or 3 years old, if not older, because the DVDs are cheap. It takes a movie. It takes a lot for me to go out and buy a movie on the day or the week that it's been sent out. It's been released on DVD, because a lot of times they're quite expensive. So it takes a movie a lot to get my interest so much that I go out and get it on the day that it's released, or the week it's released, or close to the time that it's been released. And American Mary is one of those movies. I absolutely fell in love with the whole premise of the film when I read the synopsis on the internet, as I said, and I've got to say it has got to be the best horror film I saw in 2012. Well, it was released in 2012 in the cinema. It was only released in this country in 2013 on DVD. If that makes sense. Yeah. Anyway, it's about a young woman who is going through medical school. She's having problems with bills and everything. The main character is played absolutely fantastically by Catherine Isabel. If I say Ginger Snaps, the trilogy Ginger Snaps, then I'm sure you'll know who I mean. She was the older sister in all three films, and I think she's a fantastic actress. She's absolutely brilliant actress in all the films that I've seen her in so far. She plays the titular character of Mary, and she needs money. It's as simple as that. She needs to have money so that she can carry on with her studies in surgery, medicine and everything. Her family are struggling to pay for her bills as well, because their business isn't going as well, and so she decides to join or become an employee of a gentleman's club. Yes, what you'd probably call a strip club. But she doesn't even get a chance to take all her clothes off for her audition before she gets dragged to the basement to perform some major surgery on a guy who has lost an eye. And that, as she walks down those stairs into this basement place where there's a guy covered in blood and an eye missing, that is really her descent into the craziness that is her life for the period of the film. Everything just gets crazier and crazier for her as things go on, and it's one of those movies that you sit there and you think to yourself, I don't know about anybody else, but when I'm watching a movie, especially when it's by relatively new people to the industry, I always sit here and I compare movies to other things. You know, if I was watching a comedy, I'll compare that comedy to other comedies that I've seen and think this. And I was sitting there thinking, this reminds me of something, and I can't quite put my finger on it. Now, I saw an interview with Mark Commode on the BBC, and he said that it was very close to David Cronenberg stuff, which, in a sense, is right. You know, with the whole body modification in it, and the whole flesh, and you know, all that stuff that David Cronenberg likes in his movies. I can see where he's coming from, but then I was thinking about all the films that I've liked over the last 20, 25, 30 years that I've been watching movies and films. And then it hit me. It was almost as if Dario Argento, who is the Italian director who did such films as Suspiria and Inferno and Phenomena, absolutely great films, all of them. And also the Japanese director Takashi Miike, who directed the movie Audition, which was a 1999, I believe, Japanese horror film. And that's where I feel this movie, American Mary, sits. It has the whole sense and the whole cinematography of an Italian horror film, but it's also, and the suspense of it as well, but there's also that underlying fear, and you're not quite sure whether you should be scared of the main character or whether you should be on their side or that, or you know, of the Takashi Miike film Audition. There is a bit in it that, to me, turns the real world around, really. As I said before, it is about, it is somewhat implanted in the world of body modification, having tattoos done, piercings, implants, you know, amputations and the like. But it's not the people who are having the body modifications that are the crazy people. The people who have limbs cut off or things implanted into them aren't, in this film, seen as the people who, you know, are strange. It's the people that you would normally think would be the normal people. You know, the surgeons, the doctors, all the people who in real life you would probably trust with your life. They're the ones that are depraved, sick, you know, crazy. You know, they're the ones that are having parties with women who they drug, and they do very unspeakable things with them whilst the women are drugged and that. You know, and it just turns the normal world completely upside down with that whole thing. There is gore in the film. There is gore. It's about body modification. You have people who have arms amputated and swapped around. The Soska sisters do the usual Hitchcock thing and appear in their own movie, which they were brilliant in, I've got to say. They play twins, because they're twins in real life, and they play twins who are very big into body modification. And you know, their characters get their left arms amputated and grafted onto each other's bodies, plus other modifications as well they have on there, which seems normal in comparison to what the doctors and the surgeons are doing when they're letting their hair down and doing what they want to do. But as I said, the gore is there, but it's gore in a sense of it's part of the story. It's not gore as in films like Saw or Hostel, where it's like how many different ways can you rip a human body apart, you know, just to make people want to be sick. The gore is in there because it's part of the movie, and I don't know whether it's because it's a cut version. I don't know if there's a different version for it for the American market or the European market or whatever. But all of the medical what's the word I'm looking for? All of the medical procedures that happen to people, they happen off screen. You don't see anything. You hear things. You hear things like a scalpel slicing into flesh, or you know, people whimpering or moaning in that because they're having things done to them. But you don't see it. The whole goriness in that is left to the watcher's imagination, and I think that's some of the most strongest. That's the strongest way you can actually have things like that, is by not showing the gore. You don't have to have everything on display. If you've got somebody having their head blown off, you don't need. You hear the gun go off, you hear a splatter, and you might see a shot of blood going across the screen. You know that they've just blown their brains out, or somebody's blown their brains out. You don't need to see the gaping hole in the back of the head all the time to know what's happened. And a lot of the time, your own imagination is 1,000 times worse than what actually you see on the screen. So yeah, I mean, this is one of the things that I actually like about this movie, is that the gore is there, but it doesn't take away from the actual story. It doesn't diminish anything to the movie itself or to the characters involved in it. Another thing I liked about it was that as the titled character Mary, as she was getting further and further into this whole body modification subgenre of subculture, the lighting in the movie would shift. So when you first see her, it's quite bright, and you know, she's going through her usual day-to-day things, and everything's quite bright and sunny and shiny, and the lights are there. But as the film goes on, as the tone of the film goes on, the lighting as well gets darker and darker, until in the end, there's a great scene near the end of it where I don't want to really spoil it for anybody, but there's a great scene at the end of it where she is in the women's bathroom in the strip club, and she's getting all her tools and that out, and the light is flickering, and everything is blood red, really crimson red, and you can see, just you didn't even need to know the character. You can see that what's happening in her head is just her going more crazy in what she's doing. You know, people are telling her that everyone's scared of her. You know, even the big, built like a brick outhouse bouncers are scared of her. You know, these people are, you know, used to bigger, nastier people than that, and even they're terrified of her for what she might do to them if they piss her off, really. If you like horror films but you don't like gore, I would say this probably would be. Excuse me a minute. Dropped it. I would say this probably would be the film for you. I usually, I probably wouldn't let my girlfriend watch it because she really doesn't. She's not really into the whole horror film at all, which is one of the reasons why I don't watch Walking Dead, because she's just not into the horror films. But I think that I could probably even get her to watch this. There is not much in the way of sensationalist gore in it, shall we say. The story in it is just great. The script is solid, absolutely solid. The actors in this movie are just perfect for the parts that they play. The only thing I can think of that I can say bad about this is that, and it's not even a bad thing, but there's not going to be a sequel. But I think that's good as well, in a way, because one thing that really makes a horror movie, and it really diminishes from the horror movie, is when you have sequel upon sequel upon sequel. We don't need to have a Friday the 13th part 54. We don't need to see Saw 28 when the head of the actual original Jigsaw is in a jar and it's bubbling away and he's still trying to somehow create these death traps for people to try and escape out of, which everybody knows 99% of the people that are in the death traps aren't going to escape from. So I think that is a great thing for this movie, in a way, is that there isn't going to be a sequel, because I think it really doesn't need one at all. I think it will stand. It's one of those movies that I think would stand the test of time for the genre for itself. And yeah, I really cannot wait to see what the Soska sisters have got up their sleeve for their next movie. Quite frankly, I'm looking forward to it personally. In fact, if they're watching, then I would love to have an interview with you anytime on Skype or on Google Hangout or whatever. Yeah, right. Like they're going to watch this. You never know. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, if you like horror films, but you don't like them too gory, then American Mary is absolutely fantastic. 5 stars all the way, without a doubt. Right, so there you go. That is my movie review. I say that as if it's a regular thing, but it's not. But then saying that, I might do a movie review on Dread next, if anybody's interested. I saw this tonight as well, and yeah, if anybody wants to know what I think about this, I'll quite happily do a review on Dread. So, if you've seen the movie and you want to comment on it, if you agree with me, if you haven't seen the movie and this has piqued your interest and want to see it, if you don't agree with what I say, if you think that I'm talking an absolute load of twaddle, then comment section down below. That's what it's there for. Or if you want, make a video response, because I don't have any of them, and it'd be pretty cool to have to see a few of them. If you liked this video and the review I've given of American Mary, then thumbs up the video. Fantastic. If you didn't like the video, then thumbs it down. No skin off my nose, no dermis off my proboscis. But if you didn't like the video and you thumbs it down, in the comment section, say why you thumbs it down. Don't make me send Mary round to your place to cut your legs off. So thank you for watching. I will probably see you tomorrow night for the Friday night comic book review show. Hopefully that will be on time. Take care, and whatever movies you watch, make sure you enjoy them. Ta-ta for now.